Chapter 2 of A Different Cowboy, Part 2 by Joe Jones. A few days had gone by and Johnny and the others had been staying in Cole's little house on the outskirts of town. Johnny and Sam were ranch hands while they stayed there, helping Cole and Parker every day feed the cattle and protect them from wolves, snakes, and coyotes. Johnny had still not told Sam the news that he was soon to be a father. When he decided to tell him, they were eating supper. Tessa had cooked a fine meal for everyone. Fried chicken, some greens, cornbread, and sweet tea. Truly a southern meal that any man would die for. Her and Johnny would often try to outcook each other. They could cook better than anyone else they knew. As they were halfway through supper, Johnny looks over to Tessa and smiles. She smiles back, and he turns to Sam. "Sam, we've got some big news to share with you." Sam looks up from his plate and wipes his face off with a napkin. "All right. What's going on, Johnny?" "Do you want to tell him, honey?" Johnny asks Tessa. She smiles and says, "You can tell him, Johnny." He leans over and kisses her on the cheek. "Well, my good friend Sam, my beautiful woman here is carrying our child." Sam smiles with his enormous mustache from across the table. Tessa begins to laugh because his mustache always seemed to smile too when he did. It was so large you couldn't see his lips, but you knew when he was smiling. He leans back in his chair and raises his eyebrows and looks down at the table. He looks back up at Johnny and Tessa and says, "Well, I'll be damned. Johnny's gonna have a baby. I never thought I'd live to see the day. I'm shocked. You know that's gonna change a lot of things for y'all." Johnny grins. "Yeah, it sure is. I couldn't believe it myself when she told me the other morning in the hotel lobby. At first I thought she was just fooling about. But then I seen the serious look in her eyes that I've seen so many times, and I knew it was real. I almost shouted for joy. But she told me to keep it between us as long as I could." She reaches out and grabs his hand. "Sorry, babe, I could only keep it between us for 3 days. I'm so excited. I've been losing sleep. I'm going to be a father." "It's okay, babe," Tessa says. "Have y'all thought of any names yet?" asks Sam. "Not yet, but we will soon. That's something we need to discuss," Tessa replies. The time finally came for them to move on out of Tombstone. They loaded their wagon and rode off with the sunrise. They had only been riding a few hours when they started to feel the ground begin to shake. They stopped the wagon and looked at each other. "What the hell is that sound?" Sam asked. Johnny looks around and sees nothing. As the noise begins to get closer, he says, "Sounds like a stampede of horses coming from somewhere." Tessa opens the flap on the back of the wagon and peeks out. Boys, we got trouble," she screams. Johnny races to the back of the wagon and looks. His eyes get big when he sees what's coming. "Indians!" he shouts to Sam. "Go!" Sam uses the reins on Ranger and makes Ranger begin to sprint. "Yeah! Yeah!" There was a whole tribe of Indians gaining up on them, around 200 of them. That's why the ground rumbled. They could hear the Indians shouting, getting closer and closer. They could see that they had bow and arrows, and some were beginning to aim at the wagon. "Get down, Tessa!" Arrows begin to zoom past the wagon like bullets. Tessa screams as Johnny holds her tight on the wagon floor. "Step on it, Sam!" Ranger huffs and puffs as he runs as fast as he can to get them away from the danger. The Indians begin to ride up beside the wagon. 2 of them look over at Sam riding in the front, holding the reins tightly in his hands. The wagon begins to run over rocks and Ranger begins to slow down. The wagon is now shaking violently, and they fear the wagon will soon detach from Ranger. Sam looks over at the Indians that are riding beside him. They yell and begin to point their bow and arrows over at him. Sam screams and has no choice but to pull the reins as hard as he can to the left to avoid being struck by an arrow. In doing this, to turn the wagon is turned too sharp at the speed they were going, and it flips, throwing everyone out and destroying parts of the wagon. Johnny, Tessa, and Sam lay on the ground, hurt, each one bleeding on the face along with bruises on their bodies. The Indians ride up and surround them in a big circle. One gets off his horse and walks over to Johnny, looking down on him. Johnny opens his eyes and squints, looking up at the man. The man looks down on Johnny and the others with rage. He calls out to another member of the tribe in their language, and the other Indian throws him a bow and arrow. He points the bow at Johnny, but as he pulls the arrow back, Johnny loses consciousness. "Johnny! Johnny!" a voice calls. "Johnny!" Johnny opens his eyes to find himself in a teepee tied back to back with Tessa. "Tessa? Is that you?" "Yes, Johnny. I've been trying to wake you up." "Where's Sam and Ranger? What happened?" "Sam is over there behind you." Johnny looks over his shoulder to see Sam lying in the dirt with his hands tied behind his back. He wasn't conscious, but at least he was still alive. "Ranger's outside the tent. He's not hurt miraculously. The wagon just separated from him. He kept on running, but they caught up to him and brought him back. After you passed out, right as that man was about to shoot you, the chief called out from the crowd." "What did he say?" "I don't know. I couldn't understand him. But whatever he said saved our lives. They loaded us all up and brought us back here. Sam tried to pull his gun on him. That's why he's knocked out now. They hit him upside the head with a big stick." They could hear people outside talking. Then they began to hear drums playing. As soon as the drums stopped, the tent was open, letting the sunlight shine through very brightly onto Sam's face. He began to groan, then opened his eyes. They all looked at who opened the tent. "It's the chief," Tessa whispers. The chief sits there and stares at them silently, then walks over and sits down on a buffalo skin that was laid out on the floor. "What do you want with us?" asked Johnny. "I want to know what you are doing on my land. The white man has already stolen most of our land, but this land they say we can keep as a reservation. So why are you here?" "We're just passing through. We don't mean anyone any harm," Johnny replies. Sam sits up and yells out to the chief. "Who hit me?" "Silence!" the chief yells back. "You are the foolish one, to reach for your gun with 200 of my people surrounding you. I don't want to hear anything out of you." Johnny looks back at the chief and says, "Please, let us go and we'll be on our way. We're trying to get back to Texas. I'm also part Indian myself." The chief squints his eyes at Johnny. "You are not my people. You are the white man. You are my people's enemy. You make war with us, eat our food, take our land and our women." "No, Chief. You see, my grandmother was full-blooded Cherokee Indian. I may not look it, but I have the spirit in my blood." "What spirit do you speak of?" "The spirit of the Indian, the warrior, the protector of those we love. It's in me, in my blood." Tessa looks over her shoulder to Johnny. "This is Tessa, my woman. She's carrying our child." The chief turns his attention to her. "Is this true, woman? You lay down with the white man, or he makes you?" Tessa answers by saying, "Yes, I lay with him. He doesn't make me. He's different, not like the others." "And this is true? You are with child?" Yes, it's true. The chief stands up and says, I will test your truth. If what you say is true, I will let all of you go. But if what you say is not true, I will make the two of you an example of what can happen. I will confer with the Great Spirit. If the eagle flies over the village 3 days in a row, then what you have said will be proven true, and you will live to see another day. 3 days go by, and they still remain in the teepee. Suddenly the tent opens again. The chief stands there with 2 Indians beside him. The chief talks to the others in his language, and they untie everyone and give them a bowl of food and water. The chief sits down as they begin to eat. The Great Spirit has answered my request. You are free to go as you wish, for being truthful and having Cherokee blood in you. Outside you will find your wagon fixed, with your horse attached. The chief then hands Johnny something with markings on it. Here, take this with you in your journey. If you run into another tribe, tell them Chief Eagle Feather has blessed you, and show them this. It will protect you. Thank you, Chief. May the Spirit stay with you and guide you, and with you and your tribe here as well. And with that, they left the village, free to continue back to Texas. This concludes Chapter 2 of A Different Cowboy, Part 2 by Joe Jones. Please let us know what you thought about this chapter in the comments below. If you like this video, please like, share, and be sure to subscribe if you're new to this channel for more content. Thank you.